Welcome to the Microschool Show, your window on the global microschools movement. Whether you're a teacher with a dream to build a school of your own or a parent looking for a school that suits your amazing kid, you're sure to be inspired by the creativity and innovation of our guests. I'm your host, Dr. Mara Leineberger. Today, we are talking with my first actual school owner guest, Amy Marotz of Awakening Spirit School in Stillwater, Minnesota. Amy helps highly sensitive students to reawaken their love of learning in just 3 months. Moving into her 4th year of operation, Amy's micro school is expanding, or has expanded already, and she's going to talk with us about this, into a space to offer students more opportunities for self-directed, experiential outdoor learning. Amy graduated with honors from St. Olaf College in 2002 with a double major in English and studio art, and she obtained her teaching certification and a master's of education from Bethel University in 2004. Her formative teaching years were spent instructing 5th through 8th grade students, teaching English at Minneapolis Academy, which is a college prep school for predominantly low-income families, for 3 years. During the summers, she taught art for K-5 students with the St. Paul Academy Summer Art Program. When it came time to send her daughter to 1st grade, Amy knew that she could provide exactly the environment that her daughter Alex needed to thrive. She jumped into homeschooling headfirst and never looked back. In 2017, as a direct response to requests from her network marketing and entrepreneurial friends and family, she decided it was time to start a new chapter and to welcome more students into the fold. She is an officially recognized non-public private school in the state of Minnesota. When Amy expanded to a standalone farm school location this fall, she also welcomed 3 new staff members. Welcome to the show, Amy.
So much for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor.
Welcome. So can you tell our listeners a little bit more about Awakening Spirit, maybe your mission and anything you want us to know about your micro school?
Absolutely. Well, the intro really did a great job going over my educational history and background. Right now I'm sitting in my beautiful main classroom space at Awakening Spirit School. As you mentioned, we cater to highly sensitive children. So what that means is that there are 15 to 20% of the general population whose brains are wired to take in sensory information at a different rate. They're more sensitive to light changes, to sound, to the things that are happening around them, which makes it really difficult for them to function and perform to the best of their abilities in a traditional school environment. So what I did was I am one of these highly sensitive people myself, so I know what it's like. My daughter and son are both as well, and in starting our school, and we'll talk about that later, I'm sure, I decided to very consciously curate the environment to eliminate stressors, eliminate flashing lights, eliminate loud noises and jarring smells and sounds, and just make it a really calm, comfortable, home-like environment where these kids can relax. A lot of them are highly anxious and just become the learners that they are capable of being.
Yeah, it sounds fantastic. I know that, so you're in this new space, you have property. I know in the last year you've expanded. Do you want to tell our listeners a little bit about what your numbers were like and how you got started, and then how you made this decision to purchase a property and scale up your school?
Absolutely. I started my official micro school with 4 students, 2 of which were my own, 2 children. The first year we did it, I had only 1 extra student, and then we were technically a homeschool cooperative because I taught part of the classes and the other little girl's mom taught a couple classes. The next year I knew that I needed to take ownership and take complete responsibility for the curriculum, for the teaching, and so I decided to file as a non-public school in the state of Minnesota, and I picked up 1 other little guy. So I started with 4 students, and the next year I had 5 students, and then organically we had 7 students, and that is when I started working with micro school builders, and I was able to really take off my teacher glasses and put on my business owner glasses and say, okay, we're going to evaluate what I've been doing, evaluate how this is being successful and what things I need to work on. And the things that I really needed to work on were the budgeting, the financial things, a lot of the traditional business school subjects that I had not had any experience with being an entrepreneur. And so with the support of Micro School Builders, I was able to write a rock solid business plan that included expansion. I first started off meeting in the lower level of my own home, which is a great way to keep a really shoestring budget. We like to call it a proof of concept school. Does the community need this? Is it something that is going to be valued? And as I grew to 7 students and had more and more interest, I knew that yes, my proof of concept school was successful, and I would be able to push this forward into the next iteration. My husband and I purchased 15 acres of land with an existing home that we are using as the schoolhouse. And we're able to walk right out the door and be in nature, which was the dream all along. So it's a really exciting time, and I'm very, very honored and very grateful that this opportunity is in front of me.
So a lot of the people that will be watching the show, I would imagine, will be families who are interested in sending their children to a micro school. Can you tell us a little bit about what school is like at Awakening Spirit, and maybe how it's different from a traditional public school, or even a bigger private school in a community? How is it different?
Sure. Well, the biggest difference when you walk in the door is that we have a one-room schoolhouse approach. This main classroom is where the kids who are grades 1st through 8th all learn together. We have a morning time. Our schedule is very much a rhythm of breathing in and breathing out, which I took from the Waldorf methodology because I really appreciate that. Being that we breathe in, we come together, we have focused work time. My kids all work on individualized math and reading lesson plans that are presented exactly at their level, and we used web-based curriculum for that, with the teachers being there as guides and helpers to help them get through the new material. Then we breathe out. We have forest school, which we are outside, and I have a wonderful outdoor education teacher who is teaching them how to, in the last week alone, they are building lean-tos and learning how to tie all kinds of knots and learning how to properly use saws and real tools. The theory behind the outdoor education is that if you allow kids to take risks and to push themselves, then they are going to be able to grow and have more self-confidence than they would ever before. So we have this beautiful land that we get to go out and enjoy. So then that's the breathing out, the forest school. We come back in together for a gratitude journal and morning tea time, which has quickly become one of the favorite parts of the day. The kids prepare and serve all of the snacks at our school. And so they like to see who's going to make what type of tea. We've foraged for goldenrod tea. We've made plantain tea. They had mint tea today. So that's just another learning opportunity that's sneakily put in there for them to experience. And then we do another breathing out with a little meditation where they all get to do a guided meditation every day for relaxation purposes before we come back together for our science class, or it's a main lesson. Half the time it's science, half the time it's history. What's really neat about it is that the kids actually get to decide what we're learning. So right now we are doing a mammal unit because somebody was really interested in learning about biology, and they sat around and they said, okay, well, I know this. This is mammals. Studying mammals is something nobody's ever done. And so we decided by vote, we're going to do that. In the next month, it might be World War II, or it might be ancient Mayan civilization. I don't even know what it's going to be, but they will get to decide that. And it's my job as a teacher to curate the content to scaffold it so that kids who are in first grade and kids who are in eighth grade are all appropriately challenged. And we do that just through different tiered note taking and then extension projects for the older kids.
It sounds like a lot of fun for you, Amy. It could be difficult because you aren't the master of everything. You aren't the master of all the content, but you get to explore things alongside of your students. Is that pretty much what it's like?
That's totally what it's like. And I have even gotten to the most fun part of the day, which is our passion project time. So at the end of every day, from 1:30 to 3 o'clock about, we allow the kids to do completely student-led learning, meaning they get to decide what they want to learn, how they want to learn it. Our teachers are guides at that point as well. We help them procure materials. We assist them if they need supervision, but the kids are really in charge of what they want to pursue learning. So that's an amazing part of the day.
I'm laughing because I think I hear your therapy dog in the background, and I keep thinking she's going to come and show up because she's a big part of the school, isn't she?
Kind of upset because I shut the door on her.
Well, you should let the door open and let her come in because she's actually a big part of your school. And Amy can talk a little bit about this, but one of the cool things that happens at micro schools is, whatever the community wants and needs becomes part of the school. So Amy's school has therapy animals, correct?
Ooh, yeah, this is Kalachi. She is our therapy German Shepherd. And she just hangs out with the kids all day long. She is a wonderful source of just anti-anxiety, relaxation. We have one cat right now, Princess Inga, and we have two kittens that are going to join us at the end of the week. We have two rabbits, we have a hedgehog, and then we have an assortment of frogs and toads that are found in the wilderness every day, and then we release them at the end of the week. So there's a whole lot of animal interaction and learning from these guides that we have and our animal friends.
Your setting looks so beautiful. Can you tell people a little bit about, how you've set up that space? Because when I think of a school classroom, I think of desks and chairs, and I think of lots of not always, but a lot of times pre-made materials that are, alphabets and guides to learning and things like that. Your space looks very much like a traditional one-room classroom. There's like lots of light and it's bright. And it looks very simple and not quite filled up with a ton of stuff.
Every single time people see letters, not even words, but letters, your brain goes to try to figure out what that is and decipher it. And for our kids who are highly sensitive, that can be so distracting. They can't listen to a peer talk about what they're interested in or the teacher give instructions because their brains are actually trying to decode what's on the wall, even if they've seen it a million times before. And so we try to keep it very low visual stimulation. And lots of natural wood, not lots of natural materials. We have sheepskin pillows and rugs around because it actually acts as like for stimulation, for hand stimulation, for the kids to have something to fidget with. It's very calming and soothing. We use lots of essential oils, and we do, the kids kind of each get to decide on which crystals that they are really feeling drawn to and have on their desk for mineral study. So we try to keep things very calm and soothing.
Well, I'm watching. It's funny because it's hard for me not to be distracted seeing beautiful Kalachi. She went over and she's looking out the window at the beautiful environment outside. Do you find that your students tend to sit and stare out the windows, or are they super engaged, or sort of a mixture of both? And
both depending on the day. And I figure if they're looking out the window, they're going to be learning something because they're watching the birds at the bird feeder and they're observing which birds are coming. They're watching the leaves change and the scenery shift from summer to fall. And maybe they're catching sight of, we have a black squirrel and a deer that wander around here. So it's all learning opportunities. And that's a huge difference for me from a traditional school, is that we don't have the same rules. As long as kids are being respectful and are engaged in something, really. That's all that I want them to pursue what they love to do and to find out what their passion in life is. And maybe the kid staring out the window is going to be a field biologist. And me as a teacher telling them to stop and work on your math book, you know, it's going to be what stands in the way of them getting to their goal in life.
Mm-hmm. I know that one of the hallmarks of Awakening Spirit is that you all like to travel. Do you want to talk with us a little bit about how field trips and actual intentional travel is part of what you guys do?
Absolutely. So we do weekly field trips. So once a week, we go out and explore somewhere. And even with the pandemic going on, we've been able to find amazing natural sites that are safe to go visit. There are more things opening up here too. So we try to prepare for those visits through our studies during the week. For example, we are actually in the Minnesota Science Museum this Friday, and we're studying mammals now. So we'll be completing some projects when we're there studying the exhibits that they have on mammals. I also now have a preschool that is located in this same school, and they're of course studying dinosaurs this week. So we're all really excited. The preschoolers are actually going to lead the older kids around the dinosaur exhibit and explain different things that they've learned about dinosaurs this week. So that's kind of what we try to do with, we call it, that's like the field trip day. But 3 times a year, we take the kids and we go on week-long road school trips. So the entire school packs up. We have parents who are able to volunteer and help us. We decide where we want to go. We decide what we're going to study. The kids are completely in charge of, I give them the budget and they decide, okay, are we going to drive? Are we going to rent a bus? Are we going to fly? What would make the most sense for budget-wise? Where are we staying at a VRBO? Are we staying at a hotel? How are we getting all these people together? And it's an excellent activity for their math skills as well as their planning skills. They really want to go to Mexico. So I was talking about the ancient Maya earlier. So we decided in order to go to Mexico, let's find what we're going to study. So we decided to study ancient Mayan empire. We have a couple kids who speak Spanish, so they were going to give some Spanish lessons to the rest of the kids in order to go and explore and enjoy and just learn through travel, learn through culture, learn through foods, and have it be intentional learning, not just we're going to go to Disney World just to go to Disney World. But there's nothing wrong with Disney World. We've actually been there as well for a trip. We just researched the history of Disney, Imagineers, and the physics of roller coasters, and we went off and went.
Now, are you going to be able to take that trip to Mexico this year, or is that something that's sort of contingent on the pandemic and the students know that and will be okay with that if you have to hold off?
Have it as a tentatively in the spring. So I know there's a tentative before that. And we're working on having an alternative with the idea that if we don't do the alternative trip, then we'll just do that one in the fall. So it's perhaps South Dakota or somewhere like that, so we can go do some American history studies.
Now, since we are talking about microschooling during a pandemic, is there any sort of thoughts or things you want to share with viewers about how you're handling that? Maybe microschools are, safer during the pandemic. I know we're seeing with a lot of our public schools with the students going back, having to shut down and do remote learning. Do you have a plan in place for the COVID pandemic and sort of how's that working out for you?
Yeah, so what we have in place, we have Google Classroom, we have a remote classroom set up already because some of our students are traveling full-time with their families on road school trips, and they are able to sign in the classroom, share their assignments with everybody. So we do have that's already set up, and the kids are very familiar with using it if we were to have to go to 100% remote schooling. What's been really nice is that because we're such a small school, we only have 8 families. We are able to, as part of our contract, ask the families to treat this as a pandemic pod. So we're not, I should say, we rely on the families to keep themselves safe, keep their kids homesick. We've had a lot of kids, more kids homesick this year than before because people are being very proactive and very careful and cautious about any of this fall stuff that's happening around right now. So that's
Yeah.
been, we don't have to wear masks because we're the same kids that are in the same families every day. We do wear masks when we're out in public, and we just make sure that our cleaning is up to code and we're sanitizing all the time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I was thinking, we have a few minutes left. I bet you that there are people who are thinking, what does a passion project look like? What is it that kids want to learn about? Can you give us an idea of somebody's project that got proposed and how that's going and what they're working on right now?
Sure. Well, we have one little guy who we were studying ancient Egypt last year, and we were reading about melting gold into ingots and making all of the beautiful jewelry and sculptures. And he got really interested in making a foundry. And so he researched how to make a backyard foundry. He went out with his family and bought the supplies and brought them to the learning environment. And he started melting aluminum cans down into ingots. And so that was last fall. That was last spring. This fall, he has kind of moved up to the next part of the project where he's going to take the ingots and start sand casting them into swords or ring. He's starting with a ring, but he wants to get up to the sword process. So during Passion Project time, he's researching sand casting. He's watching tutorials about how other people do it. Because that one's a little more adult heavy, he can only really go out and do the casting and things when we have extra volunteers in the afternoon. So a couple days a week, we have extra volunteers come in to help with all of the heavy lifting stuff. But that's been a really neat learning experience for him. He could tell you the melting point of about any metal right now, just off the top of his head. And this is all stuff that he's discovered and learned on this journey.
That's amazing, Amy. Thank you so much for sharing all of the really richness and letting us actually have a view into your micro school. One of the things that I'm asking all of our guests is to tell us about any other great micro schools that you've seen. They could be in Minnesota, they could be elsewhere, that you think we should take a look at in coming episodes.
Sure. Well, the one that I really have worked with is Shine Together, and they are a micro school in right outside of St. Cloud. They are also very outdoor and nature based, which are the ones that I tend to follow. Minnesota Waldorf School is not a traditional micro school; it's a small private school, but they would be a really interesting school to also interview. I have taken a lot of ideas from my experience as a parent in the Waldorf kindergarten classroom and kind of brought them to my own idea of what it looks like there.
Anything else that you want to share with us today, Amy, about micro schools or about your micro school? Maybe tell people how they could get a hold of you if they wanted to know more about Awakening Spirit.
Sure. We have a website, www.awakeningspiritschool.com. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram with the same Awakening Spirit School. Yeah, I'd love to speak with anybody who's interested in non-traditional education for their kids. And I'm also always looking for subject matter experts and people who want to volunteer to help these kids with passion projects that might end up in their field.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for joining us today, Amy. And for those of you who've been sticking with us and listening to this first full episode featuring a micro school, I've got a couple more schools lined up to be featured in the upcoming shows, but I am still looking for some more school owners or people who are part of the micro school movement who would like to be guests on the show. If you'd like to come on and talk about your micro school or your work in the movement, please reach out to me at mara@microschoolbuilders.com, and we'll see you next time.